The inside of the church was dark. However, it wasn't because it was night, but because the windows had been covered with curtains to block out the light. There was a small box on the floor from which extended a cord connected to a computer terminal, which was the only light source in the room. Suro was sitting in front of that computer terminal. Alright, let's do this. As he said this, Suro pressed a key on the terminal, causing it to emit a buzzing, whirring sound. Green light briefly radiated from the box on the floor, then countless rays of light appeared within a conical-shaped light, and soon we were looking at a detailed projection of the city. Oh. That gruff voice belonged to Gazanika. As for the others, some were gasping or shuffling around, but everyone had their eyes on that spectacle. You can construct a city this detailed using a modular construction kit with a great decomposition capacity. Since it's a hermetic seal, that is effective even in outer space, and remains its natural warmth, well, its energy consumption should be around 10% during use. The algorithms to distribute water, air, and heat efficiently are nearly complete. A supercomputer is necessary to run them, but the benefits greatly exceed its energy cost. If we follow the system, it would be possible to expand perfect, efficient cities indefinitely, instead of the unregulated and disorderly cities currently being developed on the lunar surface. How many people could we house with that? As I asked this question, Suro stroked the terminal and a number appeared across the map of the city. Approximately 300,000 people. Efficiency-wise, the maintenance cost would be halved compared to the urban planning for the lunar surface's fourth city, and the use of ground space would see its efficiency tripled. This should solve the housing problem. I was staring intently at the projected image. I'm involving myself in this housing aid project because I realized it could easily be repurposed for Mars with no major changes. If the housing problem is solved, it will give people some leeway, and if they have some leeway, this should allow them to focus on the future of the lunar surface, I guess. Gazanika was muttering this as if confirming his own objectives. And how much would this plan cost? Suro shrugged at Gazanika's question. This is pure speculation, but I would say it should be about 100 billion mools. After that, there is the issue of economies of scale. The larger the scale, the lower the cost, but to increase the scale, an incentive to live in that city is necessary. Saying the only purpose of the expansion is low-income housing is no good. If this image gets stuck on the project, higher earners will leave. But we can't just brainwash people into thinking otherwise. Doing that would make us no better than Earth. Suro couched the statement in a joke, probably as a wake-up call to avoid people getting too engrossed in the project. He waved his long fingers in the air and the lights turned on. Then, as if waking up from a dream, we now looked at the pale green hologram of the city. But while a new plan for city construction would be both technically and financially feasible, it wouldn't be allowed, would it? The one who said this was Reina. Suro, the womanizer that he was, gave a somewhat smug response. The reason it isn't being implemented is because those who have the money necessary to make it happen have no reason to do so. In fact, those who have vested interest in this probably don't want anything to do with it. Emerald Industries isn't embarking on such a broad urban design project because it fears an antitrust law. Because it fears an antitrust law, but rather because letting several subsidiaries handle the city's design and exploitation will generate more profits, or so it seems. So it was a little awkwardly worded, but I see what they're trying to say. In some cases, inefficiency can turn up some profit for legislators. No matter how much the president tries to get the legislation for urban planning passed, the parliament will probably repeal it, right? Most of the guys at the parliament are employed in companies, after all. As Suro brought up the matter to Gazanika, he grumbled and folded his arms while nodding. So we really have to take care of this ourselves? Obviously. Suro had no leniency, even towards a married woman. Suro grinned widely and pressed a button on the computer terminal to close the hologram. Meanwhile, without even looking at him, Reina sat down with a tired expression, much like the one she'd had back at the public office. Gazanika was sitting on the sofa, and Risa was sitting in front of the table near the sink counter with Reina. I was leaning against the wall with Marco. All the core members of this overambitious project were in attendance, if you counted Suro. Of course, if you count those who agreed with us and those who handled the office work with Risa and Reyna, the number of our collaborators easily exceeded 100. However, the people assembled here are the ones who joined forces to build this project from the ground up. I don't think they've ever had this many people on screen at once before. Well, in the era we're living in, we have a great amount of resources for the calculation, so we will be able to create the program and start designing the Lunar Surface's fifth city in no time. In practice, we should also be able to simulate human activities. If we ran a simulation to see how different kinds of people would inhabit the city, it might give us hints as to what measures to take from then on. This sounds like science fiction. Reyna replied to Risa's words. Earth sees this place as something straight out of sci-fi, you know? True enough, I was once asked to point out the lunar city on a world map. Building number 1 for this project is full of new technology. I bet that if the folks living in it knew that could be taken to Mars and still function properly, even they would be surprised. Suro's light-hearted remark elicited ripples of laughter. Not long ago, this plan had still seemed as far away as discussing a vacation 2 years off at a home party. But our project, which would strike the greed-intoxicated lunar surface, was taking shape. Despite our absolute confidence, we could feel that there was no turning back now. It was that same tension and excitement you got right before you made a huge investment on the stock market. I never thought I'd get a second chance at feeling what it's like to achieve a dream. Gazanika said this with a sigh. In the past, he used to say that he couldn't believe he'd actually managed to be elected president. After Gazanika, Reyna spoke. At least for now, things have been going surprisingly smoothly. Even after the ceremony, we received lots of messages of support, including some from people on Earth. Next year is the lunar surface's 25th anniversary. The problems are clear. There are lots of people going back to Earth after living on the moon, and most of them wish either that was a more upright place, or that someone would scold it into shape. Like, I could understand if she said molded into shape or something, but okay, I'll assume that's correct. It's definitely not something you hear very often. That's because you can only see those problems looking up from the bottom. Suro said this, then sipped his coffee. In reality, it's not just lip service. People probably wanted an excuse to badmouth the moon too. Economically, the moon completely overtook them. Everyone's scrambling to move their headquarters up here, and technological innovations are mostly coming from the lunar surface. No wonder people on Earth feel like they're in a bind. From where they stand, the moon's light is golden. However, our plan to snap the lunar surface back to sanity is still pretty much a pipe dream. This housing project to gather low-income earners scattered across the lunar surface and the isolated immigrants has barely taken shape. This might be in part due to my lack of ability, but in any case, our project has finally taken form. I look forward to seeing it come to fruition. Kazunika's speech wasn't bad, though I was tempted to tease him and ask him how long he'd been rehearsing it. Even if no applause followed, everyone was smiling. Kazunika, who had nothing but enemies in the parliament, was smiling in a way you'd never catch him doing in public. That being said, I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave soon. I can only come here in the first place thanks to a meeting that got cancelled. Not at all. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Getting thanks from Risa is scary. I feel like I'm going to have to repay it twofold. That's not your imagination. As Suro said this, Gazanika burst into laughter. Anyway, next time we'll be at the regular assembly. Gazanika made to leave after saying this, but then he looked at me suddenly. Hal, do you have a minute? Sure. At Rena's request, Suro was showing her a somewhat smaller version of the hologram from his earlier demonstration, and Risa had also started doing something else. I took Marco with me, and we exited the church along with Gazanika. How's the thing I asked you about going? You mean regarding the research institute? When I asked this in return, Gazanika looked around, then lowered his voice. Yes, you see, I received confidential information from unofficial sources on Earth. This seems to be bigger than I thought, so it has piqued my curiosity. I looked at Marco, who shrugged slightly. We looked into it via an analyst for a healthcare-related company, and they said it was a regular government research establishment on the lunar surface. It gives official approval to data used in commercials that claim things like, if you use this on the lunar surface, you will lose 5 times more weight, or, this low-momentum machine has been proven to reinforce muscles even in a low-gravity environment. That kind of corruption is definitely something that exists, but it doesn't give the impression that it could become anything bigger. Huh. Did you think of something? No? Alright, I see. If that's all there is to it, then it's fine. Gazanika had gotten blunt, but he was still president after all. There were things he could talk about and things he couldn't. Did you consult other advisory committees about this? The president had groups of experts who advised him on every important field. As for me, I'd become a permanent member of the advisory committee on economic matters. This would be an important position in a dignified historical country on Earth, but here on the lunar surface, where both our literal and developmental distance from Earth kept us out of international politics, it wasn't really a big deal. For the rest of the world, the lunar surface wasn't so much a nation as a giant casino pretending to be a country. Moreover, its president was akin to an ornamental manager chosen by a group of big companies to act as the tenant of a casino. In the first place, most MPs were elites who were partnered with big companies and had been trusted with keeping their respective companies' profits secure. If you ran a business on the lunar surface, this was considered an essential part of education, like going back to grad school on your employer's dime. A spirited person like Gazanika managing to become president was an even bigger miracle than he himself would have you believe. I haven't, because aside from you two, I don't know who has connections with whom. If you need us to investigate more in depth, we could put some more effort into it. I didn't really understand Gazanika's indecision. Gazanika looked at me and merely said the following. Now, let's try to wait till we get more information. Until then, please leave this matter alone. I'm fine with that, but... Also, how's the funding going? That was one of the questions that was hard to ask inside the church. The growth rate for this period is 17%. That includes both donations and investments. That's rather moderate. Isn't there a way to increase that? Even if real estate speculation has calmed down these last few months, it should jump up soon, right? I would like to proceed with a large-scale land expropriation before it's too late. On the lunar surface, where the land was limited and the influx of immigrants ceaseless, real estate showed increases in value even more tremendous than stocks. As such, housing aids were more effective as the scale got bigger. However, the funds necessary for this were considerable, and when funds got this big, the slightest variation of the market price created a huge change in their amount. Since the real estate market price on the lunar surface was skyrocketing, you didn't think twice about buying stocks quickly if you could. I could take a lot of risks, but would that suit our purpose? If I suffered losses using this method, I would have no excuses. I see. This is a difficult situation. However, I heard about some unique bonds a few days ago. It seems a big-name institutional investor from Earth has entered the market. He was undoubtedly talking about ABS. Do you mean the bonds that are rated as high as government bonds? Those are the ones. I've heard that just buying some automatically yields a profit, and I even heard that their risk of bankruptcy was lower than that of government bonds. If that's the case, I would say there's no reason not to buy some, but what do you think? As I was told this, I saw that I wouldn't be able to avoid the topic of my risk and return strategy from years ago. There definitely was a part of me that wanted to say that ABS was an exception. Those are part of a set with questionable financial rules, and I'm personally not well versed in structured bonds. This is indeed, as you have said, a structure in which the more you invest, the more profits you yield. However... I see. Well, I will bear your caution over the matter in mind. Gazanika replied, agreeing with me surprisingly quickly. It might have been because he was aware that he himself didn't know much about this. I'm honored that you hold me in such high esteem, but you seem to be quite knowledgeable yourself. I guess. That's because the Parliament is all about making money. Stories about your methods are going around a lot there, but for me, it's because you brought down Avalon. That's the reason I trust you. Gazanika slapped my shoulder with his huge hand, then walked away. I'm counting on you to play your role, hero of the lunar surface. Gazanika was greeted by the security team that had come to pick him up, and he waved at me enthusiastically before getting into the car. Honestly, he behaved like such a little boy, I couldn't bring myself to hate him. ABS sure is popular, isn't it? Marco said this as he watched the car until it was out of sight. I should play my role, huh? Lately, I've just been watching over the cattle. And there you go again, saying stuff like that. I raised my hands as Marco glared at me. Got it, got it. After that, there are also phone conferences and piles of research reports that need to be checked out. We have to find sources of money among these. That's what this is about, right? That's exactly what this is about. I feel like kind of a sad case for needing encouragement from someone younger like Marco, but just knowing someone was on my side was a big help. I got in touch with Risa and then returned directly to Schrodinger Street with Marco. In the end, during the whole week after what happened at Club 25, I had spent my days immersed in the stock market as usual. Which is why, even though the topic had come out during my conversation with Gazanika, ABS hadn't even crossed my mind until a sealed envelope with the logo of E.J. Roachberg came to me. And during this week, I had sifted through the financial statements of about 500 companies, gotten phone conferences with about more than 50 companies, considered the details of around 10 of them, and ended up not even investing in one of them. I received the envelope just as I heaved a sigh over these wasted efforts, so you could say I was in a pretty bad mood. After all, until this envelope came to me, I was itching to calculate exactly how much Chris and her team had earned. These securities have sold quite well, which meant there had to be investors cutting the same amount of profits in their books using this alchemy. Everyone was basking in happiness. The only exceptions were the excessive king of pessimism and investors obstinately following the old unwritten rules of investment. It wasn't addressed to Schweitzer Investment, but to me personally. It was a matter of pride in a way. Because this product, ABS, the Holy Grail, did not fit in with our investment fund's intentions. Many investment funds usually limited themselves to one specialized field of investment when doing business, and explained this to the customers who provided their funds. Of course, it was quite common to be flexible to some extent. You even had some people who didn't explain their investment methods at all, and who limited themselves to people who wouldn't complain no matter what happened when gathering funds. But the only ones who could pull this off were the rare few overlords who had achieved such success that no one could criticize them, and who aimed to gather their funds by donning this mysterious air. Not only did you not know what was going to happen in this field in the future, there were no such assets like products or a factory you'd see in the manufacturing industry. All that existed were names and trust, which meant whether you could convince someone to provide you funds at all depended on whether they trusted you or not. What all this boiled down to was, if you just grabbed onto something because it might make you a quick buck and you ended up turning a loss, you'd lose invaluable trust in addition to money. There was more than 1.5 gigabytes of text data for the ABS specification documents we bought. As our car drove along, Marco was still tinkering with his tablet in one hand as he spoke these words. Are you really going to read everything? That'll come out to about 10,000 pages printed out. I don't need to read everything, I just need to grasp the essentials. Are we even going to be able to pick out what the essentials are? I could hazard a guess as to why Marco was muttering. This kind of financial product was, for the most part, buried in needlessly complicated legalese. It wasn't because it was necessary to so much as if a buyer turned up a loss in some fashion. They wouldn't want to bother going the legal route with it. Signing such a contract was the same as agreeing to a specifications document over 10,000 pages long. However, it was doubtful that even one person in every 10,000 read the whole thing. Even then, probably fewer than 1 in 100,000 could understand it. You kind of had to wonder if the people who wrote it even understood it. In this world of complex structured bonds and products called derivatives, an investor was cast into a jungle of legalese and math as a prey for commercial and investment banks. Even a seasoned investor could get severely hurt. This was the food chain, continuing all the way from Earth. Looking at the view outside, I let out a small yawn. Please send the specifications to Miss Sadia. She handles all our legal matters. Seriously? If we ask her, she's going to charge us a lot. But that's precisely her area of expertise, right? It's best to ask a pro. Well, that's true, but I have never seen anyone frame that kind of thing as a decoration in their office, you know? I chuckled. She was a finance law specialist, leading a group composed of dozens of lawyers, and fought in court on cases where hundreds of millions, billions, or even more were at stake. A very capable attorney, Miss Sadia. And in her neat office, for every lawsuit she won, she framed the written statement of the judge for decoration. According to her, it was the ultimate achievement of humanity in law. concentrating so much pedantic legalese in it, it would numb your brain. To know the law of the jungle, one must seek out guidance from the ruler of the jungle. So I was a bit lacking in my understanding of structured bonds or derivatives, but just by looking up a bit, you find tons of information. Interest rate swaps, floaters, currency notes, credit derivatives. As I muttered, this Marco was tapping his tablet screen with all 5 fingers as if he were trying to cast some spell suddenly stopped. You looked those up? This is one of the few things I learned. Don't touch what you don't know. Make sure to know what you can as well as possible. Then again, I just looked into it after the other night's sales promotion dinner party. There was a lot of talk about black swans. A succession of total surprises. It makes stock investment look positively primeval. Also, I can't help but wonder if this is really actual serious business. If we're talking about bets against the interest rates, you have plain swaps, vanilla swaps, and even exotic swaps. Do you think they have chocolate swaps or rainbow spray topping swaps? As long as there's a chance for investment and people willing to take the risk, anything goes. Besides, it seems like this kind of product takes advantage of people's vanity. Vanity? Our company makes use of reverse dual currency notes to ensure hedging of long-term currency risk. Doesn't it somewhat feel intimidating, yet secure, even if you can't explain why? At my words, Marco bit his lip and lowered his head. I also felt it at Club 25. One should not touch something they don't know. But what if the times have fundamentally changed? What if I'm not trying new stuff, not because I'm careful, but because I'm getting old? But isn't the opposite what causes cattle to run rampant? This is a new era, the new way of investment, the old rules have perished, that sort of thing. Even though he did criticize me a bit for not investing in ABS, I'm reassured to see that Marco was indeed on our side. That's what I think too. No, rather, it's what I want to believe. When people hear about someone who's onto something big, they lose their minds. After all, they say everyone will stop in their tracks, even just to look at a bunch of people staring at empty space. As the car stopped in a corner of Newton City, I uttered these words to Marco. And even if there's nothing there, someone might happen to find something. May what they find be hope. Marco said this as if he were praying to God. I gazed at him in disbelief before leaving the car. I accompanied Marco to a software company that had passed the investment section, or at least the document screening. It was the first time in a while since that had happened. The company was still inexperienced, but as its sales were continually doubling, it was growing steadily in scale. However, the company had not gone public on the stock market yet, and it was overall not well known. I came to know the company because one of our investors was intimate with its executive officers, and he introduced us because, like most new companies, they lack cash. It's an honor to meet you. A young man with strangely beautiful eyes shook my hand firmly. His jeans and shirt looked like they were barely containing his tall, slightly overweight body. I am the CEO, Rich Tears. I've been watching Avalon's defeat since before I came to the lunar surface. I was really impressed by your attitude, the way you followed your instincts, and how you gathered evidence even though you... Well, I'll pick up that in a second. Don't know if I covered this one before, but CEO is the Chief Executive Officer. How does it differ from President? There's also a COO, the Chief Operating Officer. I can't wrap my head around what these Yankees are thinking. There you have it. I was really impressed by your attitude, the way you followed your instincts, and how you gathered evidence even though you knew it was reckless. It's just like my attitude towards programming. I didn't have a lot of support, but watching what you did really encouraged me. Thank you. Guys like him, tall, bulky, and full of motivation to succeed as an entrepreneur, were overbearing as a rule. I was overwhelmed, and as he was still holding my hand and shaking it around as he pleased, someone broke into the conversation from the side. I am Jim Black, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer. It doesn't particularly refer to the fastest arithmetician in the company. So they don't actually explain this. In contrast to Rich, he was smartly dressed in a well-fitted suit. Rich was still trying to say something, but I managed to free my hand from his to shake Jim's. My name is Kaora Yoshiharu of Schweitzer Investment. It's an honor to meet you. Huh. As I muttered this inadvertently, Jim questioned me in return. What is it? No, nothing. Sorry. Your hand just seemed really cold after Rich's. Always telling him he needs to eat more. Jim smiled wryly as Rich slapped him firmly on the back. Marco exchanged greetings with the two of them, and we were shown into the company. We currently have 45 employees. Our main source of income comes from simulation programs for precision equipment used in the low-gravity conditions of the lunar surface. They are used in designs for factories, for example. The fact is, you can't simply divide the gravity by 6 and be done with it. It was a large, single-floor office. Just like the rundown building I ran my fund from, this office was located in a building full of second and third-rate companies. Since it was one of the underground floors, both the sunlight exposure and the ventilation were horrendous. They were using blinds, but not to keep out the sunlight. Rather, they'd want the guys one building over looking in on them. Even so, the rental fee for such a large room, especially with no partitions, must be quite high. The desks, too, were arranged casually, with sofas which were also scattered here and there, likely to serve as resting spots. Missing a word here threw me off. Marco, too, was looking around with curious eyes, probably judging the place according to his own standards. However, this place had a very free atmosphere. Though I'd never been to college, I had the feeling that it must be the same sort of atmosphere. We're trying not to put partitions between desks or to reduce them as much as possible. That's why you can see everything from the entrance to the back, you see. Rich explained this, looking quite happy as he did so. And we put coffee makers and sofas where the flows of people cross. We're a knowledge-intensive industry, you know. Sometimes great breakthroughs are born from the casual chats between people. The rent for this floor is higher than the market prices, but I think what we get in return more than covers it. He was already aware of what we were looking at. Unless you're really a startup, in order to become large enough to hire 45 employees, you needed to constantly fight with banks and investors. Rich may well have been a hopeless programming nerd at first, but with this he had improved slowly, one step at a time. Can you back that up with actual figures? I asked what I need to be a slightly mean question. Jim, the one with the slender face, looked at me warily, but Rich answered. I am a programmer to the bone. That's what I like. What do you mean? According to studies on human behavior, when a floor is divided in two, the frequency of interactions between employees of both sides becomes the same as if they were in buildings separated by 16 kilometers. Using intercompany SNS is also useless. The brain creates categories by itself, and people put more value in what they can actually see. A visible sense of unity. See? You already know the answer. I expected just as much from the man who overthrew Avalon. Rich, still laughing out loud, grabbed a snack from one of the resting areas as he walked toward the space at the far end of the room. That's why my office has glass walls. I really hate the bureaucratic vertical divisions of large companies, you know. His office really did have glass walls everywhere. He opened the door at the center, at the corner of one of them, and invited us in. Inside was a whiteboard full of calculations and PC parts with innumerable cables still attached to them. Worn-out books, soiled by handling, were also piling up. I started getting emotional, thinking how much it reminded me of Eleanor's room. Then I caught sight of a squirrel in a cage near the window. That's John. He's my superior. Rich said, laughing heartily. So your visit today is about the investment, right? Rich seemed uncomfortable saying this, just as you might guess from his appearance. Even though he was interested in things such as human behavior or programming efficiency, he might not have been as keen to discuss such worldly matters. I should warn you up front, I am extremely refined. It's alright. Carrie, the one who introduced us, already brought that to my attention. Jim came in last, pulling on the glass handle of the door to close it, and the place suddenly became quiet. It seemed the walls were remarkably soundproof. This must be a perfect environment to concentrate on your work. I don't really care, but Jim insisted. It's because the way you program is more like sorcery. Marco burst into laughter. I could imagine Rich beating his keyboard crying out in tongues. You're mean. Anyway, do you mind if I explain the details to you in place of the CEO? Jim ignored Rich and spoke up, probably thinking we would end up getting too off track if he was allowed to handle it. Rich, too, seemed to trust him and kept his mouth shut, smiling wryly. They were a good team, I thought. They completed each other. Not at all. I made a sign to Marco with my eyes before I said that, then opened up a few documents. Staple products, profits, and business plans made in advance. In the end, these were the three essential things in any company. If you examine the hundreds or even thousands of records a company had, you ended up losing track of what you were looking at. I used to think it was because of my lack of ability, but lately I've been thinking that might not be the case. All in all, it was the same for everyone. Basically, there was no way to know what would happen in the future. Which is why, since the bankers have already come to me with this rather difficult question, I'm already aware this is an issue we have to overcome. That was Jim's reply to Marco's question. The fluidity of currency that constitutes a company's blood. The fluidity of currency that constitutes a company's blood, the development of products, sales, and the time gap between the outstanding sales account and its collection. This company also had a very considerate welfare program for its employees, as with many growing companies. Since this company helped employees in the market for a house with their home loan, the amount of money available to them had dropped dangerously low several times. There were companies that went bankrupt because they exhausted the money they had on hand, even if they turned amazing profits. This happened especially to small companies. Eleanor's company also went bankrupt because, basically, it was struck at this vulnerable point. Even the gigantic Avalon, when its lies were exposed, could no longer borrow money from anyone, and strangled. Was no longer able to borrow money from anyone, and strangled, became unable to maintain its web of lies. While listening to Marco and Jim arguing back and forth, I happened to exchange glances with the bored-looking Rich, who gave me an embarrassed smile in reply. As for the usefulness of the products, I'd had the analyst that I paid every month do some research on them beforehand, and also asked Sir to sniff out any rumors about the product via his own channels. It seemed their products were very useful and overall great, but they faced brutal competition from other companies. I see, I thought to myself. The most pressing issue is something awfully obvious: how to quickly turn the new products created by one's research into finished products ready to be sold, because regardless of what kind of product you sell, similar versions of it will soon come out. The discussion between Jim and Marco had apparently reached its conclusion. At that moment, Rich was looking somewhere far away and muttering something, his fingers moving on his lap as though he was using a keyboard. He was probably so bored of the discussion that he had started developing a program in his head. That was typical of geniuses. When he noticed that Jim and Marco had started putting away their documents, a childlike sparkle appeared in his eyes. Well then, we'll have a look over these documents. Thank you for coming despite your busy schedule. We will be awaiting your decision. I shook hands with Jim after Marco, and then lastly I shook hands with Rich. Did you think of a good program? When I asked him that, Rich smiled complacently. Seems like a good company. Marco said this as we were en route to the business district of Newton City after leaving the office. Their main issue was liquidity. The business itself seemed solid. It seems so. I gave a quick reply as we neared an intersection. Traffic lights used to be few and far between, but since the number of cars had increased, the number of stops had also increased. If the fast want to go faster, the slow have to get slower. That was just like the Matthew effect. I think there was a scholar who pointed out that travel speed was tied to power. Are you not interested? I shrugged at Marco's question. Rich Tier's business card, and only his. We can put it in our folder. What do you mean? Well, you see, Jim was probably born on the moon. Huh? Marco stared at me dumbfounded before pulling out his tablet in a hurry. Yes, they told us they were both born on Earth and graduated from the same university. Then they met by chance on the moon and hit it off. However, this is all a lie. Is that why you were surprised when we first shook hands? Exactly. I can recognize someone born on the moon just by shaking hands with them. You guessed the same thing about me when we first met. Yes, but that can sometimes seem creepy. Anyway, the other thing that bothers me is their office. Margot didn't reply, frowning in deep reflection. Since he seemed intent on surpassing me, his pride probably didn't allow him to just agree meekly with everything I said. As I was thinking about how that was a good thing, the light turned green and I started crossing the street. But when I looked over my shoulder, I saw that Marco was still not moving. So I let out a sigh as I continued to walk. I'd like one rum raisin, please. As I was buying ice cream at a stall on a street corner, Marco ran to catch up to me. I got my ice cream and started walking again as I licked it. So it's the office, right? The glass-sided one. I offered my ice cream to Marco, but he made a grumpy face and went to buy a mint chocolate and vanilla double ice cream before catching up with me. Could you stop teasing me like Risa does? You'll get some candy or chocolate as a reward, right? When she does it, it's scary because it really feels like I've regressed back into childhood. Oh well, just keep that in mind. I said before starting my explanation. When a CFO closes the door, it is definitely because something inconvenient is in the air. But there wasn't anything suspicious in their numbers. It could have been in their business plan, or in their line of research. I see, but... well, I see why they would be blowing their own trumpet regarding these topics. The issue is whether the people who would opt to work for a business with this kind of floor plan would appreciate people like Jim Black. The business district of Newton City in the early afternoon had a fairly relaxed atmosphere. I found myself once again thinking about how odd the perpetually frantic Schrodinger Street seemed in comparison. Is there an internal discord? I don't think that's the case. You saw how bored Rich was, didn't you? Their employees must have decided to work there because they admire his genius. They probably feel like Jim might be using Rich. I'm sure Jim understands that. That's why there's a door on his glass office. Marco, who had been stuffing his mouth relentlessly with his double ice cream, gulped down a mouthful before talking. Are you sure you're not just overthinking all this? It's quite possible. However, companies are people. In the end, it all boils down to people. Well, I'm aware of that, but... besides, not having any liquidity despite being largely in the black is clearly suspicious, especially when they don't have any old factories or stocks over there. Their only expenses should be for their personnel in the offices, along with the cost of the computers. Marco made a displeased face at my comment. He was probably thinking that if I had precise numbers to use as a basis, I should have told him sooner. Maybe they're going to turn the proceeds from the software's update into a net income ahead of schedule. They're probably thinking that since their clients are going to update the software anyway, they might as well make a profit by doing this. Software companies usually show their company's financial results in detail. However, if they take the future profits in advance in order to increase their current profits, they end up being taxed and it eats away the liquidity. That's because, no matter how close to being tax-free it is, it actually isn't. But why? I shrugged as I gave my answer. With the embellished financial statements they obtain that way, they're probably getting funds from financial institutions and people specializing in investing in companies that aren't on the stock market. At first, they might have pulled apart rival businesses and genuinely used that as propellant for the growth of their own company. After all, Suro did tell us that this field was highly competitive, but if they do that once, it has to be on an even bigger scale the next time, because investors expect continuous growth from the company. However, what if it gets increasingly difficult to keep up? And what happens if they end up incapable of doing more than that? They grab as much cash as they can, and they run away. It could have been from the ice cream, but Marco grimaced like he had a headache. I'll be sure to investigate this thoroughly, just in case. Yes, please do. I replied, and continued to eat my ice cream. Marco let out a small sigh. So this one was a bust too, huh? It seems so. We screened 1,000 companies, did further research into the 10 we retained, and visited the only one to make the cut. But in the end, that was useless. In any case, it was a referral this time, but I understood what he wanted to say. I looked at the sky surrounded on every corner by skyscrapers so tall, they seemed ready to collapse at any moment. Investing in stock may have gotten old-fashioned, I guess. Companies that sometimes seemed promising ended up being completely rotten inside. Because their profits were too high, because the money came in too easily, somewhere they had lost their restraint. 4 years ago, Eleanor was lamenting the same thing. She deplored that many borderline fraudulent companies offered their stocks on the market, and that there was nothing she could do about it. Even if she herself prevented them from launching on the stock market, another investment bank would give them the okay. 4 years had passed with no change to that. The lunar surface was spinning so fast it started to go mad. The term lunatic wasn't just a figure of speech. Even if you gather the funds, you have nowhere to invest them. Any potential candidate looks too scary for anyone to consider investing. After that, is the rest of competition to see who can take the most risks. That's because even if you bet on the same thing, the more borrowed money you bet, the more you'll get in return, right? Marco's telling me it sounded more like a reproach than an agreement. Objectively, my investments must have looked awfully irritating. If I had nowhere to invest, I just needed to double my bets on positions that were currently making a profit. My nickname of Wooden-Legged Donkey was never meant to be a compliment. Since letting the capital I gathered stay idle would be a serious negligence, leveraging at least 2 or 3 times that amount was a matter of course. Among the cows I know, the highest leverage ratio is a record-breaking 3,300%. If you bet your personal funds with a 3,300% return, you could buy a 100 mole stock for 3 moles. If that stock's value rose to 103 moles, your assets increased likewise. If it rose to 112 moles, your assets would grow even more. On the lunar surface, if you got your hands on frenzied stocks, you could see their value rise from 100 moles to 300 or even 400 in the course of a month. Because of that, a snot-nosed brat could become a multi-millionaire in no time. However, all it took was that 100 mole stock's value dropping by 97 moles and your plan had failed. Furthermore, while a stock's value could rise sharply, it could drop just as abruptly. Besides, I had experienced firsthand the consequences of betting large sums of money on a single stock. In the stock trading contest from 8 years ago, I ended up as good as a beached whale. This logic applied not only to stocks. Any kind of transaction required first and foremost sellers and buyers. When you wagered a sum of money too important, you became unable to react at a moment's notice. If you made the stock's value diminish by selling, then others decided to sell as well, making the value drop even more. You became more and more incapable of selling. The Gamma Trap. Demons were lurking in the marketplace. The more stock prices increased, the deeper they sank their claws into their victim's neck. Why don't you consider alternative investments? Marco said this as if he was observing my reaction. When they get up to a certain scale, most funds diversify their investments. As long as we were not in a world where exchanges exceeded 1 trillion moles a day, there weren't many outlets that could absorb large sums of money. Like what? Marco replied to my mischievous question with his chin lowered. ABS, for instance. Even though Dr. Wallace is keeping an eye on that. Well, I do think it'd be pretty thrilling, but he probably wanted to say that maybe it was not that risky. I nibbled at my ice cream cone. Ultimately, going out of our way to avoid ABS ended up being irrational obstinacy. Conviction and obstinacy were 2 different things. If you really were being rational, you could make an informed decision to stay away from it. In that case, should we try asking Miss Sasha? I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce her name. Sadia? Huh? If we don't do anything, we'll end up like Burden's ass, who can neither go left nor right. We need an Amazon to guide us into the jungle. I've never heard of this before. Burden's ass. An ass dying of hunger and thirst stands at a fork in the road. The right path leads to a manger, and the left path leads to a well. The ass dies while contemplating on where to go. Since the housing project was starting to take shape, we were going to need more and more capital. Like Azanika said, the price of real estate was about to skyrocket again. That alone would make this project difficult to realize. I wanted this project to succeed, as it would serve as a preparatory step toward my own dream. But even if that wasn't the case, since everyone else's dream also depended on this, I couldn't allow myself to become a bottleneck. More than anything else, I wanted to find out whether or not the connection between risk and return that had permeated my entire being had really shattered.